Hey there, and welcome to Connect the Dots Learning Center podcast. I'm Stephanie Wagers, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. Whether you're a seasoned therapist, clinic owner, or just starting out, this podcast is your go-to spot for insights, tips, and stories that'll help you connect the dots in your practice. Today, we're diving into the world of pediatric occupational therapy with a true powerhouse, Amy Wheadon. With over 25 years of experience under her belt, she's helped countless children thrive. Dr. Amy holds degrees from Colby College, Boston University, and the New England Institute of Technology, where she focused her doctoral research on high-intensity exercise to improve sensory processing in kids. Amy is the proud owner of KidSHINE, where her mission is all about empowering kids through a strength-based approach, building confidence, community, and self-advocacy. Oh, and did I mention she's also the co-author of the King's Day Out children's book series? But that's not all. Amy is also the founder of EXERSHINEkids and the brains behind EXERSHINEkids Power Bootcamp program. This program uses high-energy exercise to supercharge sensory processing, strengthen bonds, and create lasting friendships. Ready to hear how movement can change everything for kids? Let's jump right in. Welcome, Amy Wheadon from EXERSHINE. Thanks for being on today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to have the opportunity to talk all about EXERSHINEkids and also KidSHINE, my clinic. So yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Let people know about it.
And you're in Massachusetts.
Correct. So we are on the North Shore of Massachusetts. We're about 30 minutes north of Boston. We have two clinic locations for KidSHINE. One of them is in a very small town called Rowley, and the other one is on the New Hampshire border in a town called Amesbury, but still in Massachusetts.
Okay. How far apart are those?
They're about 15 to 20 minutes apart.
Okay, perfect. And you just do OT, is that right?
Correct. We are an OT only clinic. We work very closely with a speech group and do a lot of cross referrals, but we really are focusing on the OT piece of things and bringing in this unique eclectic framework that I created that I've called the EXERSHINEkids framework, but really what it is looking at high intensity exercise and how high intensity exercise can be a complementary approach to traditional sensory integration techniques for helping kids with self-regulation and sensory processing.
Okay, let's unpack that a little bit. So let's go back. Did you have a clinic before you developed this program?
Yes, so it happened at the same time, and they helped each other, if that makes sense, and I can explain it more. So basically, when I worked at other clinics, when I was a lot younger, I found myself really liking doing groups. So I would group kids together and always found myself kind of throwing in these challenges that were like crazy obstacle course, like more than your traditional obstacle course type of challenges, and always involved a workout. By nature, I'm a very active person. I've been a marathon runner, weightlifter, just really into constantly needing to move my body and work out. And that's probably because I'm an adult with sensory processing challenges. And I've found that for me, exercise is my regulation tool. It is a lifelong regulation tool, and it's helped me a ton. So I used to sprinkle that into my treatments when I worked at other clinics. And then I made the leap in 2016 and said, that's it, starting my own clinic. And I was working out at a gym at that time, and the gym owner was a friend of mine, and he was like, hey, do you want to rent space here for your clinic? And I was like, no, I'm actually going to open my clinic in my house. So I had a finished basement. My kids were younger, so I borrowed all their toys. We had a swing set in the back, swings in my basement. We put a zip line in my basement, and I basically ran KidSHINE out of my basement.
Wow.
But I was like, I need a place to be able to start running these groups like I was doing in other clinics. So I did rent space in my friend's gym, and that's where EXERSHINEkids was born. And it basically was as this group program that was run at a gym. And we really, at that time, were targeting kids who were transitioning from one-to-one OT out into the real world in terms of their leisure. It needed a little bit of by somebody who, still could set eyes on them from a sensory processing perspective and help support success within that group. So that's the first kind of catchment group that I had. And of course, it grew in popularity to the point that people would sign up to do boot camp classes, to do our EXERSHINEkids boot camp classes. And I'd be like, ooh, they really need OT. And they were like, can you be our OT? So then I would do an OT eval and they would come to my basement and I would treat them there. And then I would, have them in the group at the gym. Eventually, I had about 25 to 30 kids a week coming to my house. Kids were coming off the bus. Like, it was starting to get a little crazy. And I was like, it's time to think about a location. I, at that point, had 2 employees who were working in my basement, and they would work one-on-one with drive to the gym and I would do the groups. So I was like, oh my goodness, this needs to change a little bit. So I rented our first space in spring of 2017, so that we could have everything together in-house. And that's when things really started to grow. And when I train clinicians now in EXERSHINEkids, in the framework and how to bring that group program to their clinic, I talk about the journey and how the group program really helped to grow my clinic, and my clinic really helped to grow the group program. So there were a lot of those crossover opportunities where kids from the community sign up for the group and they need OT and now they get both, or kids who need OT need the opportunity to practice less in a one-to-one setting and more in a group setting with other kids. So they might, stay in one-to-one one time a week and then have the group another time, or they might transition from a discharge perspective into the group. So there's so much crossover. And then we started bringing the groups to different private schools and private preschools and kind of bundled it with, when you let us use your space, we can also screen your kids if there's any concern. And then that opened up doors for us to be able to, in some cases, treat on site. In other cases, really bring those kids over to our clinic for treatment. And then again, filter kids who could benefit just from the boot camp part of it. Get them into the groups right while they were at school as more of an enrichment program.
Okay, let me go back just a little bit. So you developed this program when you were getting your OTD, is that right?
I developed it before I got my OTD.
Before, okay. But I mean, a lot of your stuff says it's based in research. So can you tell me a little bit about that? I mean, I'm an OT, I get it, but just like for the listeners, what, because I think a lot of practitioners now really want to follow the research and have that to lean back on.
Exactly. And so that was kind of where I had reached this kind of like stuck point where I was doing all of this and seeing all these amazing results. And as an OT could speak to the results and the parents could speak to the results and the kids kept signing back up again. But I was like, I need the research to back this. I need that research to be able to kind of identify exactly what it is that we're working on. And because this was new in the area locally, a lot of other CrossFit gyms were popping up with kids CrossFit classes. And I went to another gym and they were like, give me your flyer. And then they were running classes. And I was like, whoa, I got to differentiate this and talk about why this is really important for our field, for the field of OT, and why we are the people who can do this and help, kids have success in these groups. Like, leisure occupation is an occupation and it's important, right? So I decided to get my OTD to do research on the program. And I did do a pre-test, post-test study in 2019. It was a 16-week study. We ran groups in 2 locations. Kiddos needed to score at the time, the SPM that we were using was the sum problems or definite difference range overall in order to qualify. They could not be getting OT for outpatient during the course of the study. And many of them were identified with sensory processing disorder and some sort of concurrent type of, either autism, ADHD, things like that. And we found significant results in 8 out of the 12 areas that we measured, including proprioceptive processing, vestibular processing, praxis and planning, ADL and IADL participation, social participation. So a lot of really good stuff that we found in the back. And then what I did is I also dug into the literature that was already out there and found there wasn't anything out there. There's no one else doing this, but I've now started to see like bits and pieces. I've found other articles and studies that are talking about like the importance of physical activity for overall mental health and for participation in daily occupations. So it's like we're going to take that to the next level. And what I've been doing with OTD students who come to us from some of the local area universities is they've been doing mini projects related to a longer term study that we want to do in the future. So my dream is to do a multi-site implementation study where I have 10, 12, 15 clinics all trained and certified to run EXERSHINEkids with Fidelity at their clinics, and have them collect data so that we can kind of compile and say like this program really works, like really, really, really works.
That's awesome. I love that. I love it. You and I have such a similar like past, like going back, getting your OTD, needing to move, all of those things. And I don't know how you were when you got your OTD, but you're a business owner. You know, it's just a lot of information.
It was crazy. I was talked into it. I was
Which
talked
program
into
did you go to?
So I went to NEIT, New England Institute of Technology. It was 100% online, which was great. So I'm a single parent. I have 3 kids. They are now all teenagers. One is in college, but at the time they were in like middle school and elementary school. So I was trying to juggle their schedules, trying to juggle running the clinic with the 2 locations, going back, getting my OTD, doing research, teaching the classes. So yeah, it was a lot. And it was like a blessing that I was able to do the program for the OTD completely online. And the kicker is I defended my doctorate on March 11th, 2020, I think. So I had promised my kids we were going to get a puppy. I was like, we're going to take a little bit of a break after, I get my OTD, and then we're going to settle back in and then get moving again on EXERSHINEkids. And then we all know what happened with COVID.
Yeah. I bet you felt defeated almost, right? You did all this work and then the world just kind of shut down. Or was it kind of like, thank God I get a forced break?
It actually wasn't a forced break because, as a business owner, it was an immediate pivot. It was like,
Oh,
oh my,
right.
I have no clients, not to mention the fact that we were moving one of our locations from a smaller location to this state-of-the-art location that we have here now in Rowley that I specifically designed for group programming. And I was like, how am I going to do group programming when I can't have kids here? And so I had a very empty, very large space for several months. But what it did is it forced me to kind of slow down. It forced me to pivot, and think about like, how are we still going to make this work? And it became almost like a godsend for a lot of families when they were ready to send kids back, because that was the only form of physical activity that they were getting.
Right.
We almost at that point were taking the sensory piece of it out the window and just looking at kids who were so deconditioned. And let's start to get people's stamina back up again. Let's look at endurance. Let's go back to the basics and think about core strength, or think about opportunity to interact with other kids, because the kids were like, there are these people, right? And so we did it virtually when we had to.
Okay.
To the point that I had one kid who was traveling, and I don't recommend this, but he was traveling home from somewhere and he didn't want to miss the boot camp class, so they pulled into a rest stop.
Wow, they were committed.
Super committed, and he was doing like burpees and all sorts of things. And like I remember there was like this big rock, and he was trying to do box jumps on it. I was like, "Can you please be careful?" So, but he did it. We had a whole families that were getting together and doing it together as a family and working out. And then again, was as the world was slowly starting to open back up again, because we had, all the things in place to make it safe. We were one of the first places that were able to offer extracurriculars for kids and give them that re-entry back into social participation, finding friendships at a time where they really needed it.
Yeah.
Hi to somebody,
Right. So I want to talk about a couple things. One, your space is amazing. Like I'm looking at that and thinking, did she build a warehouse? What is that? I want to talk about two, do the kids that come into the program, like what level do they need to be able to follow direction? Like how much support are they allowed to require? And then then I want to get into like what a typical EXERSHINE class might look like, and then how and why would a clinic get certified? So we got our
Yeah.
work cut out for us.
Yes, we do. And you're gonna have to remind me of each of those
Oh,
points.
well, I might forget too, so it's all good.
So, to answer your first question, the warehouse. So this actually was an empty warehouse when I found it, and it's a quarter of a mile down the street from where our smaller location was. So I used to drive by it all the time. We'll drive by the driveway because we're like nestled back up in the woods, which right now is beautiful with all the
It
trees
looks
changing.
amazing. Yes, I'm looking at your trees, and is that where your clinic is?
Yeah, I'm in my office right now
I'm so jealous.
and I could run you around the clinic if you want to see it in a little bit, but
Yeah, we
uh,
might do that.
just so you can see what it is. But I mean, what I tell people when I train and certify them, because I do it on Zoom, so we're in the clinic, like in the clinic, sort of while we're
Yeah.
doing it. Like it never started like this. This was the culmination of, at that point, probably about 5 or 6 years of doing it to
Mhm.
know what I needed, how I wanted it laid out, what things we were going to do. Like the first clinic that we had, the boot camp room, basically, you walked into the clinic and you were in like the waiting room, check out desk, check in desk, and then the boot camp room. And then if you were getting therapy, you had to walk through the boot camp class to go to a
Mhm.
room where it was a converted garage with one swing point. So, and a ball pit and a little table. So that was like the first one. So, we kind of worked out all of the kinks, even when we started building walls there and being like, oh, we can make this a little waiting room or make that a little waiting room. So we worked out all the kinks. And because it was an empty shell, it was feasible for us to kind of move things the way that we needed them. So we have one room now, the boot camp room, that you can enter in and out directly of that room, so it doesn't disrupt the
That's
kids
nice. Yeah.
treatment at the same time. So that's been really key. And we did like the fact that we have the garage door, and that back yard or hot top kind of area behind it,
Yeah.
because during spring and summer, pending that we've got kids in the group who can handle it, we open up the garage door, we do inside outside obstacle courses, we do a lot of stuff outside. We really want to, look at all the different ways that we can include physicality and nature, and just being able to be together in a large open space successfully. So we're
Mhm.
really that with what we've got here. That's very
Awesome.
special.
Let's talk about the your perfect client. What client works and what client does not work.
Yeah, so something that I've learned a lot about over the past few years as well, because there definitely are some kiddos who are just not ready for boot camp. And then there are a lot of other kids who are ready for boot camp. So I have found that the kids who are most successful with the least amount of support are autistic kiddos who are able to have that base level of social participation, but need a little bit of help with like nuances and perspective and things like
Mhm.
that. Any of our sensory seekers who need to move their bodies and need help with impulsivity. Anyone who is working on praxis planning and sequencing and can benefit from all of the practice and sequencing that you get when you do a 25-step obstacle course, which we always do every single week.
Wow.
Um, and then kids who have difficulty with gross motor skills, who have poor core strength, who have poor endurance. And the nice mix that we try to get in the group are some kids who are really working on social participation, working on impulsivity, working on identifying, what zone their body is in and what strategies are going to help them be in that zone, and how exercise can be a strategy to help support self-regulation. Mix that with kids who are already kind of savvy and comfortable with social participation, can listen and follow directions more independently, but might need help with some of the motor skills piece of things. That mixed together really makes a very harmonious group.
Okay.
Right, the 5:30 class is that. And it's such an interesting mix of kids, and they are all within the 8 to 12 year age range, and they are all trying to figure out how to find those connections that help them to become friends with each other.
Nice.
And sometimes it's tricky, and sometimes we have to stop conversations, and sometimes we have to like circumvent certain conversations, and we're really on it, right? Like that's one thing I tell people when I train and certify them too, is like when you're running the group, you can't be one-on-one with the kid because you have to be managing all of the group dynamics, making the group flow and go from one part of the group to the next group, the pacing, the timing, and all of that. We always have rehab aides in our group that are trained as well. And they're, put with specific kids to help more on a one-to-one basis, more with that unskilled help, but we give them particular suggestions like, so-and-so might need a fidget. I think John might need to go, grab a drink of water. So we're really kind of guiding them too. So we're basically like conductors of an orchestra, and we've got all the moving pieces happening at the same time. And that's what facilitates the success most often.
Okay, let's talk numbers. What is the ideal age range, or what is the age range that you take? Do you group them by like 8 to 12, 6 to...
So we do very different age ranges. So what I train and certify people on is the 5 to 8-year-old age range group, and it's called Strong Kids 2. That's the name of that particular class. I then teach them that they can grade that group and that content up for the 8 to 12-year-old age range. So I purposely have 5 to 8 and 8 to 12 because 8's that swing age that can go either way. That said, those are like soft numbers. So we've had, a couple of 9-year-olds that are in the 5 to 8-year-old range. We've had a couple of 7-year-olds or 13-year-olds that are in the 8 to 12-year-old range. We're really gauging, where the pain point is for them that we're supporting them with, and where their successes are, in order to kind of make sure we're matching their success areas with the right age level, if that makes sense.
It does.
Um,
It does. How many kids do you need to have in a group to make it financially feasible?
So when I train and certify clinicians, I tell them, please do not start with any more than 4. You can make an
Wow.
8 session work financially with 4 kids in the group. That said, once you're comfortable running groups, we will have up to 8 kids in a group, unless it's preschool. So we have a group for 3 to 5-year-olds called Mini Kiddos. I am still working on getting the content refined for that for training purposes, but we've been running Mini Kiddos for 8 years. We have Strong Kids 2 for our 5 to 8-year-olds, Strong Kids 2 for our 8 to 12-year-olds. We have a group for executive functioning that's mostly kiddos with ADHD, tend to really like that group and need that group. That is more loose in terms of the structure, less focused on getting the input that you need in the right way, and more focused on, like, again, those social nuances and trying to understand problem solving and working together as a team. So that one's called Brain Games. We then have a girls empowerment program for 5 to 8-year-olds and 8 to 12-year-olds. Again, that's really focusing on lifting up girls and getting them to really feel confident and supported and to be able to get their voices heard. And we have our team conditioning program. So we have 2 now. We have regular old team conditioning, which is teaching proper form of weightlifting and how to bring exercise and weightlifting into your life on a daily basis. And they have really bonded with one another as friends. There's been dances, there's been all sorts of things happening in that group. And then we just opened up Fit Teens, which is a kind of slower paced version, a little bit less on the weightlifting, focusing more on just proper form and conditioning. And that class is more of a one-to-one basis in terms of adult to kiddo ratio, just to really get kids moving and being part of a group with as much support as they need.
Okay.
I also was going to just kind of add in when you asked about like the age and the profile of kids. So we do have some kids who really benefit just from being around other kids, but need more than the support of a rehab aide to be successful. So what we do in those situations is we actually will schedule the child's one-to-one session at the same time as the group, and have the child and their therapist bump in to the group for whatever parts the child is able to participate in. Sometimes they need some sensory prep in the swing room before they come in. Sometimes they can do the warm up and they need to then go out and kind of decompress from all of that going on, because it's a high stimulation group. I mean, everybody's moving, doing burpees, all that kind of stuff all the time. So,
Right.
but again, we want to be able to make this group program as accessible as possible to a large group of kids. with the right level of success so that it's not just like a free for all. It's very
Right.
structured.
Okay, so my brain goes to numbers because I've run groups in our clinic, all cash based, because we know that insurance does not, well, if you want $7 an hour, right?
Right.
And like our sweet point has been like 4 is kind of a break even because I have to compare it to like what could we get for a one-on-one session, and what do we need to have? So our kind of break even has been 4 kids at a time. So talk to me a little bit about like what is it okay if I ask you how much do you charge for a kiddo to go through the program? It's an 8-week program, right?
Correct. It's an 8-week
Okay.
program. One of the things I do actually when I train and certify clinicians in the program
Mhm.
is we do all the nuts and bolts and basics. So we talk about ratios of kids to adults and how to train rehab aides and how many kids to put in a group and how much to charge or not charge depending on your area. So for our area, what I have found is a reasonable price point, and we just bumped it up a tiny bit. We're now charging $290 for an 8-week session, which breaks down, I believe, to $37.50 per class per kid. They
Mhm.
sign ahead of time for the whole 8-week session. And what we do is each session, with the exception of the one we're in right now, because of the way the weeks fall, each session includes a makeup week.
Okay.
But the way that we do our makeup weeks is we don't just put them at the end. Sometimes they fall at the end, but we put them during school vacation weeks. We know
Mhm.
that attendance is lower during school vacation weeks anyway. A lot of times parents want to sign up for a group knowing that there is um a built-in makeup week, but they don't take advantage of it. They just want to know it's there.
Mhm.
So that's why we put it where we put it. And then we'll do things like an incentive, right? Like if you're coming to um the makeup week and you bring a friend, the friend can come for $5 and then they get to try out the program and then they usually love it and sign up for the next session. So we kind of try to strategically put our makeup weeks in there in a way that is going to be beneficial for more kids to have exposure to the program. The kids
Right.
who've missed still do the class, but also making sure that financially as a clinic owner and as a clinic, it makes sense in terms of staffing and all of that.
Mm. And I'm assuming you run this program after school, correct? Or is it during school
We,
hours?
we do, however, there's so many different ways to kind of pivot and change it up and things like that. So we run Strong Kids 2 after school, brain games, girls empowerment, teen conditioning. Teen conditioning is more in the evening. But we just opened up a few homeschool groups in the middle of the day. So now we're running classes for kids in the middle of the day. We have a school that is at the bottom of the hill from where our clinic is. They bus kids up for sessions. So we are also talking,
Wow.
we're also talking about the potential of busing a group of kids up for, or having them walk up for a boot camp class in the middle of the day, because obviously you're not hearing any kids right now in the background because there's no one here at 12:30 in the afternoon during the school year. Um, so that's why we do things like homeschool groups. Or the other thing that works really well for during the day is our preschool groups that we run as enrichment after school preschool. So I have a clinician right now on her way to a school about 20 minutes from here, and we use their like their multi-function hall.
Mhm.
I guess like a and we run groups there. And then we have a couple of other schools that have after school programs, and we run those groups there. So if it's a therapeutic group, we have obviously our trained and certified clinicians that run those therapeutic groups. Hands down, it has to be like that.
Mhm.
Sometimes we'll let our trained and certified rehab aides run the more of those enrichment type groups where we know it's not going to be anything that requires clinical support. Because what we were finding, again, this is clinic owner to clinic owner, right? We were finding if we had an OTR and we had them drive 30 minutes, set up for 15 minutes, teach a class for an hour, unset up for 15 minutes, drive back to the clinic, then we've got
Yeah.
now, that's 3 clients they could have been seeing.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So, but the beauty of this is that when we run the classes here at the clinic, because the protocols have all been pre-designed, pre-prepped, pre-set up and our rehab aides are trained to set up the space, we walk into the classes and teach. So for example, I have a kid that I'm treating today from 3:15 to 4:15, and I'm teaching a class at 4:30. I walk in, I look at the protocol, I teach the class, we reset it, I teach the second class 5:30 to 6:15. Done.
Awesome. And you don't document because it's class, right?
Correct. Now, we call it a therapeutic enrichment class, and then again, it can be an adjunct to one-to-one therapy, not a replacement for therapy. We do have a little documentation checklist because best practice is to have some sort of record of things. It's not necessarily required, but it is best practice to do something like that. But it's nothing like it's like check, 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 and just taking some data. And like, again, the more data that we have, whether it's something that turns into research projects or something that's just, let's compare this. Like a mom wants to know, like, how's he doing? Well, like week 1, he couldn't do a sit up. Week 10, he held a plank for 45 seconds, so that can be really meaningful information to have too. But again, you don't necessarily have to do anything crazy because it is considered more of an extracurricular activity that has a therapeutic focus.
Right. Can you walk me through? So it's an hour long?
45 minutes.
45 minutes. Okay. So, and you said you did a 25-step obstacle course?
We always do a 25-step obstacle course at minimum.
So let me ask really quick, what size space would that require for a clinic to have in order to do that?
So that question comes up all the time too. And it doesn't really matter if you know how to strategically weave an obstacle course.
Okay.
And you use the stuff that you have, right? So for example, we have, and I'm more than happy to take you into there if you want to see what it looks like, but we have stuff like lined up on the walls. Like we have rock wall on the wall, we have a cargo net on the wall, we have a warp wall on the wall. So we have all of those things, and you can do like an agility ladder to a rock wall and then come down from the rock wall and do some stepping stones and then have hoops and do like 4 sets of burpees and then do a Bosu ball plank hold and then go back to the, like there's ways to just utilize the stuff to do it or to weave it from one direction into another direction. So I have run this in backyards, driveways. Actually, driveways are fun because you can use chalk and you can do 90 million. My big space, my little space, my friend's gym space, church function rooms, classrooms. I talked to a clinic that I've trained, and she was like, I don't really know how to do this. I was like, just zoom me into your clinic and we'll problem solve it. And so she had one room and another room and then a hallway. And I was like, oh my God, this is perfect, right? Do the static warm up in this room. And then the activity can be either in the first room or the second room. And then when you do the obstacle course, have them start in the first room, go to the second room, weave it a couple of ways around, go out the door, through the hallway and back into the first room and end right where you started. And so you just have to get creative about how you
do
everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I do want to look at your room, but let me ask first, tell me a little bit about the process of a clinic getting certified or, how does that work? Cost-wise, time-wise, the whole thing.
100%. So there's a couple of different things that I've been doing in terms of training and certifying clinics. And I've been doing that piece of it since 2021, I believe. 2020. I think it was 2021 when we started officially certifying and training clinics. And the training has morphed quite a bit. I've actually created a free 1-hour training. Sometimes I do it live, sometime, or otherwise you can just go on my website and click on it and watch it. But it's called Power Play. And what it is getting people familiar with the framework. Because the biggest challenge for me is twofold, right? Like I want people running the groups, but if you don't understand the framework, you're not going to be able to run the groups. And there's so much that people can do with the framework without running groups. So part of my passion is getting this out there to everyone, whether you're ready to run groups in your clinic or you're just really interested in the how, the why, and the research and evidence behind how high intensity exercise can be a regulatory tool. And I think about like schools that don't have sensory rooms or don't have, hour-long appointments and things like that. And I worked in a school for 8 years in the beginning of my career and would do all of this kind of stuff. I didn't technically flip tires down the hallway, but you can do a lot of without needing to have a swing. And it's functional and it's straightforward and it's great carryover for the classroom. It's great carryover for home. It's giving you endurance and conditioning and strengthening at the same time as it's giving you sensory input. But I think we're so conditioned to think in this like certain ways that we don't think outside the box until someone shows us the outside of the box. So power play is always my first recommendation for people who want to learn more about the framework. Really gives that nice touch. And then I just ran something called Power Play Plus that included an opportunity for people to brainstorm and for me to kind of pop into breakout rooms. And like we took away a bunch of different activities that they could start using right away. From there, if they're like, oh my gosh, I really want to learn more. I want to go deeper, learn more about the research, learn more about all of this. We have the training and certification workshop. The training and certification workshop is a 2-part workshop. It is a total of 10 hours. It is an AOTA approved course. So you do get AOTA credits for it. And you know the way that they do that. So like 10 contact hours becomes 1.0 AOTA CEU.
Right.
People is it's 10 contact hours. So
yes, I know they make it so confusing.
But it's a lot. Like all the clinicians here who work for me at KidSHINE have the opportunity to run groups. And once they're trained and certified, and they also get those 10 contact hours for getting trained and certified that, goes for their license renewal, their NBCOT renewal, all of that. So that's really nice. But part 1 is self-paced distance learning. So it's 4 hours of listening to me with this background, talking. You get really sick of my voice. But again, like, why is this so important? Like, what is going on right now in our society that we need to have something like this in place? What are you guys noticing about in your own clinics and facilities that you're working in, or schools, or wherever your catchment area is? And talking about the research and their skill checks and things like that. Then part 2 is a Zoom-based 7-hour day. We're actually doing one, our last one for 2024 is next Friday, October 25th. And then we take a break until January, and we'll be back in January. But we basically practice running the group. We talk about some of the stuff that they did on their own in part 1. We talk about really identifying which exercises are going to hit the vestibular system, which are going to hit the proprioceptive system, which are going to bring in a tactile component, how to tell when a kiddo is getting dysregulated, what to do about it, what types of exercises can bring a kid down from that. So we talk about all of that in the training. And then, like I had said, we talk about the nuts and bolts of like, how do you get this up and running? How many kids do you have in a group? How much money do you charge? What does it look like? When we practice running through a whole class, and then I give them opportunities to create their own obstacle course, and give them opportunities to teach part of a class.
Online.
So, yeah,
right.
Online.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically we just all pretend to be the kids. So we just
Okay.
it seems kind of funky, but it works really well. Sometimes I have kids in the clinic and I'll bring them in when I'm having like me teach a class, and I'll be like, hey, you guys, you want to do boot camp today? And they're like, yeah, sure. And so then they get to see kind of how I do it. And then I show them videos of how I've done it in other classes. And then we give them the opportunity to split into groups, practice the part they're going to do, and actually do it.
Okay.
And so at the end of that training and certification, they then have, the ability to go a bunch of different routes, right? They can take what they've learned and just kind of go with it. And then the other thing that I've done is created 2 memberships. One is an individual membership for people who are in the schools, mostly seem to be interested in this, or don't have the capacity, the space, or the ability to run a group, where I have taken all of our framework, philosophy, and content and turned it into a suite of materials that they can use in one-to-one sessions, because that's how we treat here too, right? So even when we're not running groups, and we do all sorts of, the regular traditional sensory kind of stuff, but you will most often find people in their one-to-one sessions, doing tire flips with kids, stacking tires and turning it into a tower, and like having to rescue like the trolls from the bottom of the tower and the trolls in the med balls and all of that kind of stuff. So we bring this philosophy to life in our one-to-one sessions and use those child-led themes and carry them through from HIIT style workouts, gross motor, fine motor, and visual motor. So I just basically created a whole suite, right? So if you're like into unicorns, you could like download the whole unicorn theme, and it's got 4 different HIIT workouts, 4 different gross motor activities, 4 different visual motor activities, 4 different fine motor activities. So you could take one of each week and have a whole month of unicorn themed stuff you do with your kids.
Nice. So it's kind of like a grab and go in a way, right? For a therapist.
It's a grab and go, but it assumes that there is an understanding of the framework to be able to bring that framework to life when you're using these different activities.
Right.
The
Right.
other membership that we have is the group membership. And so what the group membership is for people that are ready to run EXERSHINE kids groups in their practice. And they have all of the content that they need. So basically, each week has a protocol that's already written out. It's got visuals, it's got the exercises associated with the visuals, it's got the challenge activity, it's got suggestions for an obstacle course. We also have in that portal the EXERSHINE Kids logo to use. We have marketing materials, social media templates, documentation templates, handouts for parents, troubleshooting activities, videos of me showing like how to turn an exercise into a story. So we've really tried to package it in a way that all of the work has already been done for you. And all you need to do is go in the portal, download what you need, have someone set it up for you or set it up yourself and fly.
Nice. Beautiful. I bet that took you a hot minute to create.
Yeah, it's been like several years.
Uh-huh.
The good news is like all of the themes and the protocols have been developed over the past 4 to 5 years, and I refine them constantly too. So because I'm still running classes and I'm never giving up my Wednesday classes, no matter how much people beg me to do that, those protocols do get tweaked every once in a while. I'll be like, well, why did we match this character with this activity or with this exercise? That doesn't make any sense. Let's change this one. Or I don't like this breathing strategy. Or the really fun thing that happens is the kids are so engaged in the groups, and it's a lot of the same kids that keep coming back session after session, and then they like graduate to the next level and all of that. They give us ideas all the time. So we just
Absolutely.
like Sonic came out of one idea from one kid. We had a whole medieval theme that we did that came out of an idea from one kid. Minecraft came out of a kid coming up with that idea. Like, can you please do Minecraft? I was like, yeah, sure. You know, sometimes we'll even in one sessions be like, all right, you guys, you have an idea for boot camp? Write it out for me. We'll turn it into a class for you.
Yeah. Nice.
That was very popular too. So that's part of it too, is that, and I talk about this in the training, you have to have child engagement or none of this is going to matter. We know that as OTs, right? Like, and how much more likely are you yourself as an adult to do a workout, you know, just kind of sitting there when, let's say you're on a bike, right? And someone's going pedal 1, 2, 3, 4, or you've got music going. You're like, we're climbing the hill. Let's go. We're going to climb the hill, right? Adult, or like doing things together in a group, and you're like looking at the person on the bike next to you, and like she's going faster and you're a little competitive, so you're going faster than her, and then you guys are chatting in between, like you have that whole group camaraderie thing. So what we do is we tap into that on the level of a kid, and we say, okay, so you know, instead of holding a plank for 10 seconds, we might be a gardener in a garden, you know, picking carrots and throwing them over our shoulder for plank taps, picking the carrots and throwing them in the basket, you know, or a monkey climbing it, having a banana, and doing it that way. Or like, okay, we're a team of monkeys. How many bananas can we all get together? Let's see how fast we can do it. And by having that engagement, kids don't realize how many reps of these different exercises they're doing. They're getting regulated as they're interacting with kids. They're, you know, really connecting. We're working on things from a bottom up and a top down approach at the same time, and they're connecting and forming communities. And for kids that are struggling to be successful on a soccer field, in a karate class, in a dance class, they can come in and this is their thing. Like boot camp is their extracurricular.
Right. That's so amazing. I love it. It's great.
So, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just so special to watch all of this happen. And I don't know if you can see, there's a picture here. These three,
Yes.
but from my first round of boot camp groups. And so this buddy over here is now a captain of the cross country team, because after doing all the workouts, he learned that for him, running was most regulating for him. He's autistic, he's 16, he's in honors classes, he advocates for himself all the time. When he first started boot camp, he was kicking over hurdles and rolling around on the floor. Granted, he was 6, but
Right.
and then this other buddy over here, he and a lot of our kids do this, graduated up through the teen conditioning program and now has come back as an intern. So he helps in the little kids classes now, the same way he used to be a little kid in those little
I bet
kids.
he loves that. That's great.
It's awesome to watch that come back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, can I see your gym? Can you walk us through? How big overall is your space?
The space is 4,500 square feet.
Okay.
So it's a big space. I'm going to be showing the space to someone on the computer for a second. It would be, I know you have a class in 10 minutes, right? 13 minutes. Can I do a quick scan? She's recording it. So can I do a quick scan for like 5 minutes as you guys are setting up a class? Thank you so much. Like just count to 150 and then I'm good. So this is where kids come in. And you can see that we're doing, and we change all the names, obviously for copyright reasons, which one of my groups is fascinated with the fact that we do this. But this is week 7 for our group. So we're doing Sparky the Hedgehog. We have a theme every week, a body focus, which we talked to them about, an exercise of the week and a strategy of the week. So we have all of this that we do every week. It changes every week. And we have this structure that also is the same every week. So we always have a warm up and a hello. We have a challenge, an obstacle course, and then what I'm proud of myself for. And then we set up our obstacle courses here. This morphs and changes every day.
Okay. Wow. Look at that. It's a lot of Bosu balls.
There's a lot of Bosu balls. It must be week 7 balance. That's why. No.
Now across the top, is that just a like balance line, the red thing? Look, it looks like a zip line, maybe?
It is a slack.
Okay. Where are that connected to?
We have over here, we have this is welded into a metal pole in the wall. We had it welded, like there's like a clip thing that's welded right into a and then we have, if you can see, the metal post here. So we also have more clips on it here. And then there's another metal pole behind that wall and another clip welded into the metal pole there. So it doesn't go anywhere. And then to be extra safe, we have aircraft cable wrapped around the top. Just to make sure that if one of those things fail, because it did fail in our other location one time. Yeah. If it fails, as a safeguard, just to be safe. And my partner is a contractor, and he hung all this stuff. He built the warped wall. He built the rock wall. He helped me cut the cargo net that we had in half to make a dual-sided cargo net.
That's awesome. I love it.
So, and then you can see we have a lot of tires. Like a lot of tires. So there's some of them. And the warped wall is a big hit. And then we also have our outdoor space. So that's the garage door that we open up. Our outdoor space.
Beautiful. Look at that. Oh my goodness. I'm drooling over your space.
Here sometimes and just be like, oh my gosh, it's so pretty, especially with the fall colors.
Yeah.
We do all sorts of stuff out here. Like that's why the cones are out there. We use chalk a lot. Like I said, we open the garage door. We do bike riding lessons in the swing.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's great.
So
That's great.
And again, like we have the front door and the back door for this room, so we really can keep it contained when we're doing our classes. If you look at this, I don't know if they structured it a little differently, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is a smaller obstacle course than we typically do. But like you can see, one of the things that we do is we do use a combination of like workout stuff and gym stuff, like rather regular sensory gym stuff. So even just like a folded up mat with a triangle, we can do like a balance activity. Part of what I do in Power Play and Power Play Plus is teaching people how to look at their OT equipment in a different way. So like take a balance beam, a floor balance beam, for example, think of how many different ways you can use a floor balance beam. And what we like to do with our floor balance beams is we either have two parallel, we put hands on one, feet on the other, and plank walk sideways, crab walk sideways. You can even do that with one if you have your feet or your hands on the ground and then your other feet or hands on the balance beam. We do a ton of stuff with med balls. We do a lot of different things with scooter balls too, where we're doing like rollouts and crunches or holding med balls over our head when we're using the scooter ball. So a scooter board, sorry. So we're really finding ways that we can amp up the intensity and bring in exercise to what we're doing. And then the beautiful part is that a lot of the exercises that we do, especially in our static warm-up, you don't need any equipment at all. Right? Like a plank, you don't need equipment. Burpees, you don't need sit-ups, you don't need equipment. We do prone extension, supine flexion, of course, too, just to kind of throw those in there, but I never like to do them in isolation. So I'm trying to remember what the theme was last week. Was last week SpongeBob? We had a theme last week and I forget what it was that we were doing, but or who the character was, but basically what we did is we started with a burpee and then we decided to fly. I think it was like a vampire or something. Like the vampire was like shooting things and then he like went down on the floor and then we went into prone extension, held it for 10 seconds, came back into a half squat and back up, finished the burpee, and did that 3 to 4 times in a row. And so, you know, kind of again, figuring out ways to do things like that.
Right. That makes it play-based, right? Awesome. I will put all of your stuff in the show notes as far as like your social media stuff, how your website, and then specifically that link to, is it Power Play or the Power Hour? What was it called?
So Power Play is the free one. Yes.
That's Power Play. I'll put that in there so people can check you out that way. Anything else? You've got an amazing program, amazing facility. I love what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I feel like I talked your ear off for
No, it was great.
got to hear so much stuff. Yeah, no, I think the only thing that, you know, just to remember that I do this training and certification workshops 4 times a year. I sometimes try to do like these pop-up live versions of Power Play. Sometimes I do a pop-up live version of a webinar called Mastering Group Therapy. And I really do like Power Play Plus. I think that's one I might offer again in January. Just trying to find a time that works best for people, because that one obviously includes a brainstorming component. You get to walk away with like a list of activities that you create. So it does translate better when it's done live. So would love to be able to do that kind of stuff more frequently and just kind of learn when people typically like to do those kinds of things, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate your time, and I love everything you're doing. It's just all the stuff that needs to happen for OT and that needs to continue to happen. It's so important.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on today so that we can start to spread the word about framework like this, or just, you know, it's easy. Just just do some exercise on your own yourself and think about how it makes you feel, and then figure out how to translate that over to help a kid to feel really good about themselves too.
Yes, exactly.